Hello and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition Show. I'm James Lim Overton and I'm here with co-host Leah J. Stitt and of course Thomas the Colonel Chapman probably will be joining us soon. But we have a special guest with us this evening and I'm excited about it because how often do we celebrate or even talk to our librarians who are a very special part of our school system? So Leah, if you would, please introduce our special guest this evening.
Well, I am pleased, and it is indeed an honor for me to have the opportunity to introduce Miss Nicole Miller. Nicole Miller is one of the librarians at IC Norcom High School. She was born in Syracuse, New York. She moved to Virginia to pursue her dream of educating children. 2008, she earned her BS in elementary education from the greatest HBCU ever. Behold, the green and gold Norfolk State University.
Yes.
She taught fourth grade in Portsmouth and was honored as the Portsmouth Division Lead Teacher of the Year in 2016. In 2018, 2018, she earned her master's degree from ODU with an endorsement in library science. 2019, she began serving as IC Norcom's librarian. Outside of her love for books, she gets the most pleasure seeing her precious students and being a part of the Greyhound family. Welcome, Nicole Miller, to Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And Nicole, you have been officially grafted into the Greyhound family, so you are indeed a Greyhound. So
Thank
welcome,
you.
Nicole.
Thank you.
Just like to make notes since you did the whole thing, look over my shoulder and
What did she see over your shoulder?
we
Can't see
see
that, James.
we see the VUU symbol, Virginia Union University. Oh, CIAA. Okay, all right.
The
Just had to mention that,
rivalry
but
continues, Nicole. The rivalry continues at all times.
it always continues, yeah.
Always does.
And you know the respect I have for Norfolk State.
But Nicole, I give him a little leeway because their collars are maroon and steel. So you still have the
Oh,
maroon and gray. So therefore he gets a little leeway just
okay,
for the
okay.
colors that they have for the school.
Don't have to spend any money on color changes. We just go from Norcom to Union, same color.
Right.
So Nicole, we are so happy to have you on Portsmouth Coffee Talk on tonight. And you and your team, members of your team, that's Carolyn Bushy and
Mm-hmm.
Pamela Boone, you all are an amazing team. And you brought some wonderful things back to Norcom High School. You're
Thank
kind of
you.
taking us back to when Norcom High School was the great institution that it was. And the library has become a comfort place for many of the students at IC Norcom High School. So,
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, talk to us about your journey being a librarian at IC Norcom High School.
I actually started off as a teacher in Portsmouth, and I taught fourth grade, kind of like what you shared in my bio. And after getting my master's degree, there was a job opening at Norcom. I was definitely timid because I always taught elementary school, and so I was looking for an elementary library position, and the only position that was open was for Norcom, and so I prayed about it and I said, I'm going to go ahead and submit my application and see what happens. And if it's, meant for me to be there, then it'll come through. And of course it did. And so I started in 2019, right before the pandemic. And so it's been such a joy since I've started. Quite a few of my former students that I taught when they were 8 and 9 years old, are now in high school and were when I started. And so that's been great being able to, have that relationship with my former kids. They come to the library all the time, to see me. So that's been super, super great. And so since, really starting at Norcom, my biggest goal was to, create a space in the library that our students felt, welcome, they feel loved, they feel seen, they feel valued. And so that's kind of, my main goal for the library and what I really strive to create that environment since I've started there.
But Nicole, you know, you're standing on some shoulders of some great librarians. Yeah, I go to Liberia all the time, and sometimes you're gonna hear me messing up between Liberians and librarians. Okay,
It's our
yes,
last show was
yeah, our
about that.
last show we had a Liberian on our last show. But Nicole,
Okay.
you're standing on the shoulders of some great Norcom librarians, such
Yes,
as
ma'am.
May Breckenridge Haywood and
Yes.
James, favorite one, James Miss Who?
Miss Barnes, I
Miss
forget her
Bond.
first name, but Miss
Yes.
Barnes, yeah,
So
she was.
we've had some great librarians at Norcom, and you're standing
Right.
on the shoulders, and they did some amazing things. And so
Mm-hmm.
you, in turn, now are doing amazing things in a new way for the
Yes,
school.
ma'am. Thank you.
So one thing I want to ask you about, and before you have brought something to the school that they had not had before,
Mm-hmm.
not to my knowledge anyway, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
community read program,
Yes,
community
ma'am.
reading program. With,
Yes.
with the first one you did, I think was in 2023, was it?
Yes, so it originally started over COVID. We were out, of course, for the pandemic, and I was struggling at home, really trying to figure out how can I reach my kids as a librarian when, our books were in school, and of course we did have ebooks, but the teachers were Zooming with, their students every day. But unless a teacher asked us to join a Zoom, I didn't have access to, to our students, and so I kept racking my brain, like, what can I do? What can I do? And so my co-librarian, Mrs. Bushy, and I, we talked about starting the community read so that the students could hear our voices. We ended up having staff members record sections of a book, and we spliced it together. We added some sound effects, and we actually sent it to the student body via email, and we attached a Google form to it so that they could guess the mystery readers, and kind of just make us feel like we were unified even though we were physically separate. And so once they started submitting the form, we were amazed with how many students actually did the community read, at home. And so Mrs. Bushy and I, we got a list of the students who participated via Google Form, and we actually drove around to the neighborhoods and we delivered books and prizes to the students who participated. And so I kind of thought that it was just a thing that we would do, during the pandemic. And so the first year that we came back to school, we started the year and kids and staff were both like, what book are we doing this year? And I'm like, oh, so this is a thing now. So we're doing it every year. And so just, to see their excitement, it really encouraged us to continue doing it. It is a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. And so last year we did the crossover by Kwame Alexander. He's one of my favorite authors. And so we picked the crossover because we have quite a few students that are into hip hop, rap, spoken word, basketball. And so we kind of wanted something that would grab their attention, something that was, fun and relatable. And so we started with the crossover last year. And it was a huge success. We had quite a few students listen to the audiobook that we created. They guessed the staff, members' voices. And just to hear their excitement, like I would pop into a room when they were listening to the book and they'd be like, oh, that's my history teacher, and they would try to guess who was reading. And so they were just so excited about, about the book, which was just amazing for me as a librarian. I think a lot of times now, technology is absolutely wonderful, but our students are on their phones, so much, and they're playing video games and they're doing all of these things. And so to see their excitement behind a book was just, is really encouraging. And so we started with the crossover. We had quite a few students. We had about 176 students that submitted the form last year, which was a great amount for, our first year back together in person. And at the end of it, we always do a big finale celebration. And so we did a big basketball tournament with the classes that had the most points. The Alumni Association did help us last year as well. We got some books donated and some items donated. And so the students walked away with copies of the book by Kwame Alexander. They also got basketballs and basketball stress balls. And, we just kind of try to make it a whole fun theme. And so it was really great. And then we were also able to take 30 students to go meet Kwame Alexander. He's from Chesapeake, and so he happened to be in town right towards the end of our competition. So everything, like the stars just aligned because he was coming and we found out. And so we were able to bring some students to meet him. And I can't tell you how excited they were to meet an author, to shake his hand. He signed their books. I mean, and students still tell me, like, I have that book on my dresser. I'm so proud of that book, and so just to see the impact, last year. So now this has kind of become a new tradition. So this is our third year. We just finished our third community read. So
Okay.
Yeah, Colonel, welcome. I just want to ask, welcome to the show. And I just want to ask you, well, one thing, Leah, did you tell me that Nicole was shy? Did you say that? Did I hear you
What
say that?
now?
That Nicole was shy. Did I hear you say that she was shy and kind of camera shy?
She said, am I going to have to talk the whole hour? I said, Nicole, you can do it with ease. I know
Yes.
you. And I
You
know
see
that
how
you
it turns out. You see how it turns out. Anyway, I want to ask you, Nicole. You said, and you might have mentioned it early on when you talked. You started out in the classroom. What are the requirements to be a librarian? Do you have to have your master's or working towards it? What are the requirements to be a librarian in the school system?
So from what I was told, you did have to have a master's for education, and then you get endorsed in library media. Some people just go straight through and get endorsed in library, but that's an endorsement. So you have to go to school, for extra time. So I got my master's and then got endorsed. So I'm certified to teach pre-K through 6th grade, and then I'm endorsed for library from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Okay, very well, and it's encouraging to hear you say that the students were excited about reading a book, because one of my questions that I was coming up with is, do you see with the media, social media presence, do you see the kids still, or the students still interested in reading? And I guess it's a matter of exposing them to it.
Yes, sir.
Because if we let them get too far away from reading and relying on visual, everything being visual, which is important too, they'll lose that zest for reading and the zest for learning the right way and thinking critically.
Yeah, for sure. I know when I was coming up, I was an avid reader. My mom, we snuggled up and read together every night. And thankfully, just her exposing me to reading at an early age. I became an advanced reader just because I, read with her and practiced. She would take me to, the library, and some of my favorite memories, I would come home with my Scholastic, book order, and I would get so excited for the book fairs and, all of that. And so when I actually became a teacher, I started teaching Virginia history, and I did 4th grade. And I, would just converse with my students about, just reading, because it's a passion of mine. And quite a few of my students said that they hated reading. And it was kind of, I don't like to read, or reading is hard for me. A lot of my students, of course, not all, but quite a few of my students said that they didn't read at home, with their family. And so in my history class, I used to try to find as many books as I could that, of course, related to whatever topic we were studying. And I would sit on top of a desk, and all of my 4th graders would just sit all around me, and we would just do, story time, and we would talk about the books. And it got to the point where they would get upset if something changed with our schedule and we couldn't do our story time. Oh, they were hot. And so
that's a good thing.
It became something that they looked forward to. And so eventually I transferred to another elementary school still in Portsmouth, and I added reading. I started teaching reading and history. And so I had about 2.5 hours to teach the 2 subjects, and my kids couldn't even tell whether we were in reading or history because I just blended them, together. And so I would have the students, rotating through stations, and I would still find that when they went to the read to self station, a lot of the students would either get off task or they weren't fully engaged. And so I tried to start coming up with, how can I get my kids to buy in, to reading, especially when they're reading alone and not with, with me or with someone else. And I found that, a lot of the kids just didn't find the right books. I tell even our high schoolers now, every book isn't for everybody, and that's okay. And so I kind of would start talking to my students, what are your interests? What movies do you like to watch, things like that. And then I would start getting books in my classroom, whether I checked them out from the library myself or I purchased them, so that when they went to that station, there were books that were about, cars, if they were into cars, or basketball, or different things like that. And I started noticing that my kids started gravitating more towards reading. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided to become a librarian, because I felt like I could impact an entire school versus just the students sitting in my classroom. Although that was very important, I just felt like it opened the door to be able to reach, more students and more staff,
Yeah.
and encourage reading. So it's been a joy. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, a
And
book can take you anywhere in the world, and
anywhere. Reading
there's
is
nothing that
so
can
crucial.
compare to, no video can compare to
Hmm.
the visual that you can create in your own mind by
Yes,
reading a book.
absolutely.
And
Go ahead,
Nicole,
I'm
and
sorry.
it hurts my heart when I see kids who really don't want to read or don't try to
Hmm.
read, or they'd
Yeah.
rather be on their phones and
Hmm.
texting, which you don't use real sentences. They got their own
Right.
little way of texting. And
Right.
it hurts me tremendously when I see this taking place, because they're losing something, as James said, can take you places you've never been before, or you never imagined in a
Absolutely.
lifetime.
Yeah.
When my son was little, actually, I probably would be Child Protective Services now, but I would take him to the library
Hmm.
when he was 6 years old, and the librarians would tell me just leave him there at the down
Hmm.
Portsmouth Library. He would go downstairs in the basement in the children's section, and he would sit
Hmm.
there all day and read,
And
because
read.
reading was something that he truly enjoyed. And
Hmm.
I am beginning to see that with the students at Norcom now,
Hmm.
since you brought this reading project to the school.
Thank you. Thank you. That's definitely one of my goals. I still have a long way to go, but I feel like each year we're increasing our numbers and more students are, engaged with the book that we select. So this year, as you know, Miss Stith, we did Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. And that was a book that, our students really gravitated to, and our staff did as well. And so this year we ended up with over 200 students who read and listened to the book and participated. So it seems like each year, our numbers are going up. And so, I'm hoping that, maybe in a
Setting a
few
trend.
years, it's a trend. We can continue increasing and get more and more students, into the book. I know last year when we did the crossover, when we finished, there was a young man. One of my favorite moments was a young man. I had never seen him step foot in the library. I didn't know his name. I honestly don't even remember seeing him, in school. And he came busting through the doors and he said, "Excuse me, do you have another book by the man who wrote the crossover?" And I was just like, "Yes." so, so that was, and he checked out a book for the very first time, in our library. And he specifically asked for, another book by Kwame Alexander. And so I felt like, all of this hard work paid off because it got one student to come in the library and get a book who had never been in before. So that's my goal.
Colonel?
Yes. Glad to see you, Nicole.
Thank you.
I've got to like bug out because I have a little bit of daylight left because I'm trying to put this tent up in the backyard.
Okay.
But, so I'm also a belief if higher education or any kind of education starts with reading.
Mm-hmm.
And with reading, you have to, and if you're looking at your favorite subject of history, you have to read to get to there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about reading, is understanding, and also it help you develop into some critical thinking as you
Right.
read and a broad spectrum of subjects.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm and I haven't heard of it yet, and I'm always curious of what I see it was sweeping across this country with the far right is this stuff on book banning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And luckily, our people in office for the school board, education board, and everything haven't gone crazy, and had a moderate to a progressive wing of that piece, and they have not gone out and trying to erase history and burn books that are out there.
Right.
And so if that was the case, is there ways for librarians across this country to fight that madness?
Ooh, that's a big one.
I
That
ain't no
is a
joke
big
when I
one.
come out here.
It definitely would need help.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely would need help. I think, just librarians, like you said, kind of banding together, coming together and, speaking out, and trying to, bring awareness to what book banning actually does.
Mhm.
Because that has happened in quite a few, cities and where books are being pulled, from shelves. And so we actually celebrate Banned Books Week. At Norcom every year, as a lot of librarians do with their students, and that's actually one of the most favorite weeks for our kids, because we spotlight books that have been banned, and we talk to our students about your right to read, and of course we kind of engage in those discussions with them as to do you believe in book banning? Do you even know what book banning is? I know that we kind of stress to our students that individual parents can make decisions for their child. If there's something that they don't want their child to read, that's fine, but to make that decision for everyone's child is what we go against. And so that is it's a heavy topic right now, but like you said, we're grateful that we haven't come against that so much in our library, and we really do fight for our students rights to be able to select what they read. And so that's been something that's very very important to us. So we definitely spotlight books that have typically been banned, and it's crazy because a lot of those are the books that the students want to read. Those are stories that they
Classic.
want to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want to ban the
And-
classics that they're just crazy. But
yeah.
I really got to bug off for y'all. So thanks for coming on. And I'm
Thank
going to
you.
turn it over to the
Well,
other two.
we're so happy you
Yeah.
joined us, Colonel.
Yeah,
Even
thanks,
if it was
Colonel. And
momentarily.
yeah, and
We
thanks,
appreciate
Colonel, and
you.
thanks for bringing that up, that subject you brought up, because who would be a better advocate than for reading or not banning books than our librarians,
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
with full support behind them.
Yes.
Wow, good
Yeah.
All right.
point. Nicole, I
So,
want to well, go ahead, Cleo.
wait, okay. I want to say, Nicole, and the thing that I like about your reading project,
Hmm.
your community read project, is the fact that not only do the kids, well, at least in this last book that I
Hmm.
had a chance to participate in,
Yes,
not
ma'am.
only did they get a chance to read Long Way Down,
Hmm.
but they had activities that they can do in reference to the book that had been read. Could you
Yes.
share with us some of the activities that you had in the library?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I try, my best to captivate students, and you kind of almost have to sell books, nowadays. And so I really wanted to, offer them opportunities that they could participate in, and activities that were engaging, that were related to the book, but things that would kind of draw them in. And so with Long Way Down, I don't know how much people know about the book, but it's an excellent book by Jason Reynolds. It's about a young boy named Will. His brother is shot and killed at the very beginning of the book, and so Will has to determine if he's going to follow the unwritten rules of the street, which are no crying, no snitching, and get revenge, which are the rules that were taught to him. And so he goes to the eighth floor in his apartment, and he gets a gun. And so the book takes place in 60 seconds while Will is traveling down the 7 floors to the lobby to determine if he's going to avenge his brother's death. And so on each floor he encounters a ghost that comes into the elevator with him and kind of helps him process his decision making. And so what we did was we kind of started off with a little bit more like lighthearted activities to kind of captivate the students in the beginning, because the book was very heavy and about a heavy topic such as gun violence. And so the first week, because the book takes place in an elevator, we had students create elevators out of recycled materials. And so we got a whole bunch of recyclable materials, we laid them all out, and the students came in during their lunch, and they could partner up or work alone, and they actually created working elevators. And so that was really neat, just to see, in 25 minutes what they could come up with during lunch. And it was amazing because all of their elevators were different. So every student or every group kind of had a different, thought process with how they were going to make their elevator work. So we started with that. And then we also had a chemistry activity that the students really enjoyed with smoke, because there's an element of smoke in the book. There's a symbol of cigarette smoke. And so the students created smoke with our chemistry teacher. And then the second week, we did some activities where we addressed the rules of the street, the no crying, no snitching, and get revenge. Excuse me. And so those we really wanted to open the door for those difficult conversations with our students about the importance of being able to cry, being vulnerable, being able to show your emotions, asking for help when you need help, seeking counseling if that's what you need to process trauma and grief. And so we had different stations where students could learn the science behind crying. They read statistics about gun violence for the city of Portsmouth, the state of Virginia, for the country. And so they could paint their reactions to the statistics. We had school counselors that participated. And so we, had stations where they could address coping skills. And so we kind of did some activities like, that were, I guess, empowering for our students. We also had a station where they could write letters if they lost someone due to gun violence. And so that was a pretty emotional, station, but I think it was very therapeutic for our students and an opportunity for them to, kind of release.
Some of them probably never addressed it.
Right. You're absolutely right. And we actually had some staff members who did the same, who participated in the stations and, who wrote letters to students that they have lost. And so I think that was, it was very empowering. We saw a lot of hugs. We saw a lot of tears. But then as students walked away, you could see, that relief that they were able to, to get that out. And then with the no snitching, we kind of tried to make it a little fun. So we had scratch off cards, and the students, we had staff members that participated. So they were all throughout the library, and students scratched cards. Some of them were for prizes, and then some had conversation starters about the idea of snitching, snitching versus reporting and, things like that. And we told them that they had to find a trusted adult and they could engage in conversation and then earn a piece of candy. So that went over well. We made charm bracelets. We talked about the idea of seeking revenge and, that it's easy to want to quickly seek revenge when someone that you love is hurt, but we talked about the consequences of seeking revenge. And so we made charm bracelets to kind of remind them the 7 floors that Will traveled on. And so, just to kind of symbolize taking your time and processing and not just jumping off of your immediate emotion. So we did that. And then we wrapped up everything with banners and buttons against gun violence. And so our students came in and they signed pledges against gun violence, and they also made buttons. And it's really cool because I still see quite a few of the students that have the buttons pinned on them, or they're pinned on their backpacks or whatever. And we, made the buttons a couple weeks ago. So it was really amazing. Each time the students came in to participate in an activity, we had them scan a QR code so we could reward bonus points to the classes for them participating. And the QR code was scanned, I believe, 554 or 556 times. So we had that many students coming through participating in activities related to the book, which was amazing.
Now, Nicole, I guess we assume that by the time our students get to high school, that they are pretty proficient in reading. But it's always going to be some students that might slip through the cracks. And,
absolutely.
And one of the things we talk about students that might not like reading or want to read, it might not because they want to shy away from reading. They might have some issues like stuttering, especially with those classes that want you to read out aloud, or people that just can't comprehend what they're reading. And anyway, I guess you get the 9th graders coming in there. I don't know, the librarians from the past, sometimes they have that personality like you have, and students tend to want to come to them if they have some issues where they might not go somewhere else. Have you seen that since you've been in that capacity, that students might come to you and share that, the problems they might be having? They want to read, they want to engage, but they have some issues that, need special attention.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have had some students that, that have come to me for those very same reasons. And that's why it was important when I started at Norcom, we started to just ensure that we had books on all different levels. Because at the end of the day, my co-librarian and I were librarians for the entire school. And so that doesn't mean just your on level, kids. That means your special needs students. That means students that struggle, with reading. And that even means your gifted students, and so we really try. We have picture books in our library. We have, middle grade books in our library. We also have high level books, which means that the vocabulary is lower level, but the content is high school. And so then that way they can read books about things that are interesting to high school students, but it's a little bit of an easier read. And then we have quick read books as well. So those are a little bit obviously shorter. And so we kind of have books for all of our students. And so anytime that a student approaches, or a teacher for that matter, approaches as I have a student who struggles with reading, but this is what we're studying, or this is what they're interested in. Can you help me find a book? We definitely have kind of established a collection that really, can service all of our students. So yes, I have seen that, and I do my best, to get them books that they can still enjoy and feel like they've accomplished reading, even if it is, below level.
Very well.
You know what I like, Nicole, is the fact that the library now is not all these straight back chairs. You used to go and sit in the straight back chairs, and you had to sit there in those hard chairs. But
right.
You all have sofas, you have reclining chairs, you have the high, the tall tables with the chairs around it. Yes. And it really gives the library a different feel when you go into the library. Like I said, it's a safe, cozy place when you go into the library.
Yes.
I'm more changes are underway as well. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are prayerfully getting a renovation this year, over the summer. And so I'm hoping and praying that it comes through. And, I'm hoping that we start next year with a brand new library, for our students. I know that our kids, a lot of them go through so much, stresses at home, stresses, in school. A lot of them have jobs, there's just a lot of stress. Some of them are, of course, athletes, and, they have so much going on. And so for us to just be able to provide a space for them that they feel safe and they feel welcome. It's a place where they can relax, kind of rejuvenate. We constantly get students that come in and they just say, it's my lunch. Can I just close my eyes for a few minutes? Or, we get kids that want to just, sit down and kind of zone out for a minute and get themselves ready for their next class. During lunch, not every day, but quite a few days, we'll pull out board games and arts and crafts. Once in a while, we'll put on music. So we kind of really try to create an environment that is appealing to our students, but also provides them with, something that they need. You'd be surprised at how many of them just pop in the library to get a hug, a motivational talk. We have an amazing clerk, Miss Boone, and she has a wonderful rapport with a lot of our kids as well. So a lot of them just come in and they'll run up and just, I just came to say good morning, and they'll give us a hug and they'll run on about their day. And so just to have the library be a safe space for our kids is just, that's my ultimate goal.
It brings to mind the little shy girl. I would not call her name, but the exceptionally shy young lady who I always get to take pictures for us.
Yes.
And she would come in and she would just lean over just for a little hug. And she just wanted to be in the library, to be there with you all. And that's such a good thing, and you tell she's shy. She's a shy young lady.
Very shy.
She felt comfortable coming into that library.
Yeah. She feels comfortable as quite a few of them do. She's such a sweet young girl. So she, she'll come in and sometimes she wants to read. Sometimes she wants to do some work and just kind of find a quiet space. And like you said, oftentimes she just wants that hug. She just wants, to be noticed, and she wants to converse for a minute. And then she, she'll go back to class and do her work. But I think that just is a boost for her, so that she's ready to continue her day. I think it's something that she looks forward to. So she's one that pops in just about every day to see us.
And schools nowadays should be a little bit more than just the classroom, because what our students are going through today.
Yes, sir.
from either their home life or just existing, just that little moment, of
That's right.
being able to just clear their mind so they
Yes,
can move on is very
absolutely.
important. So,
Absolutely.
And James, I also want to mention that although Miss Bushy and Miss Miller, did Miss Boone go to Norcom?
No, ma'am. Mm-mm. She went to
Although
Church King, I believe.
neither of our librarians or our librarian clerk attended Norcom High School, but they have it makes my heart sing as to how they have embraced the Norcom history, the Norcom
Mm-hmm.
culture. They have
Mm-hmm.
the words of the alma mater up on the wall. And at one time, you could push the button and you can actually hear the singing of the alma mater.
Mm-hmm.
And they have
Yep.
on display the alumni bought a display case for them. And in that
Mm-hmm.
display case, they have relics from the past, relics
Mm-hmm.
from the past, and they're keeping that legacy alive. And I appreciate them so much for working so hard to keep that legacy going.
Yes, ma'am. Well, it's such a pleasure. It's so important, that our students understand the legacy of Norcom and what they're coming from, and it's something that we hope that they take pride in, and even if they don't fully understand, the history when they come into the library, like you said, they'll see items in the display case, and once in a while they'll inquire, what is that, and like you said, having the alma mater on the wall, that was a really special project for us to do, and we designed an enlarged poster about the alma mater, and then on the bottom is a QR code, so that still works, so students can scan the QR code with their phone, and then they'll hear the chorus singing the alma mater. And so that was, really important. And so Mrs. Bushy and I and Ms. Boone, we absolutely love working at Norcom and being a part of the Greyhound family for sure.
do you all have any connections with the city libraries where if a student comes in, he's looking for a specific book or wants to look up a subject where
Mm-hmm.
you all can connect and let him know where you can go to the main library, you can go to Tustin and find that information? Is it sort of connection there?
Yes, sir. So we actually have reached out to the Portsmouth Main Library, and so we have a representative. She's come a couple of times to sign up students and families for library cards. She came to our open house, I believe, twice this past year and the year before that. And so she's been really good with supporting. And then we also have signed up a lot of our students and families for digital library cards because, like you said, there may be things that we don't, have in our library on topics that they're interested in, or maybe even something that they need for, an assignment. And so we, during COVID, it became really simple for families to sign up for digital library cards. And so that's kind of carried over afterwards. And so we've helped quite a few students sign up for the digital. And then they have access to, of course, all the e-resources, the databases and the ebooks and the audiobooks and the magazines and things like that. And then they have, I believe it's 90 days where they can go and turn it into a physical library card for free. So we have signed up quite a few students for the public library as well.
And we always talk on this show about, of course, you can go to Google and find everything, but always try to back up what you find on Google with your own research,
Right.
especially
Absolutely.
if you're going to use that in some kind of way where it might affect others.
Yes.
Just don't find it on Google and go out there and preach it,
Right. Right.
without following up. And the best way to do that is through your library and the
Absolutely.
reference books and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think that's why I feel like the library is still a very important part of our high school
Oh, it is.
students'
It
learning
definitely is.
process, and it takes them beyond when they get out there in the real world. They won't depend on one little source as
Right.
their
Right.
information.
Yes,
They'll
yes. And
know
we
how to
actually, right,
research.
we do lessons with quite a few of our classes on fake news and misinformation and
Fake news.
disinformation because they do get so much of their information online. And so, just teaching them the strategies and the tools to be able to use to decipher what is factual and, what is are they trying to persuade you to believe what they believe, or, so we kind of run through, we do that with our cybersecurity class.
Check out the source.
Yep, yep. Yep. And media
Nicole,
bias
Nicole,
and,
Right.
all of that.
Nicole, I probably need to join that class because every time something pops up on my page, I will
Hmm.
screenshot it and send it to my granddaughter. I say, "Is this real or is this fake?"
Right.
And she immediately said, "Oh, Gigi, that's fake. Erase it. Get rid of it."
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
don't know what you're sharing, you don't know what you're looking at, you have to be
Right.
cautious with
Absolutely.
Google.
Absolutely. And it's hard nowadays. I mean, people can create fake, web pages and make logos and things that look like, legitimate sources. And so it's definitely tricky nowadays for sure.
It
That's very
is.
important. Thanks.
But
Hmm.
but Nicole, I'm going to get back to long way down because that was that whole couple of weeks. It was just so refreshing to my heart to be in the school to see the interaction of the students with the
Right.
teachers, and the teachers were actively engaged
Oh,
on their lunch
absolutely.
hour with the students.
Yes.
And I said,
Yes. Yes.
"Wow, look at all of the teachers who are in here with their students, and they are
Yes.
just as engaged as the students. They were making bracelets, they were making buttons, they
Yep.
were making the keychains.
Yes.
Everybody was busy doing something great, and but the main thing, they were working together. They were
Right.
working
Right.
together, and
Yes.
at this time, I guess we need to say that it it costs you some money, so therefore we had to call on community partners to help
Yes,
you to
ma'am.
sponsor that event, and we're just thankful for the Alumni Association as
Hmm.
well as PRHA.
Yep.
PRHA
Mm.
came through with flying colors. Miss Elisa Winston, she
Hmm.
came through with the pizzas, with the cupcakes, with the plates.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
they really, with the gift cards. We had so many people who gave gift cards for the students, and the students were excited to receive the gift cards
Hmm.
that were
Hmm.
being passed out. And
Yes.
so Nathan at Behavior Health, we want to thank him. Thank those
Hmm.
individuals who did give gift cards. I helped you to make that program successful at IC Norcom High School. And we're thankful to each
Absolutely.
of them. They'll leave
Yes.
anybody out. I hope I didn't. The sheriff's office. How
The
could I leave out
sheriff's
the sheriff's office?
office. Yep.
Yes.
Dr. Patillo. Dr. Patillo helped. Yep.
Dr. Patillo.
Yes, we
Yes.
definitely, and that's why we really started calling it a community read. And we try to find unity within our community, and that's within our school, with our staff and our students, but also with, the Portsmouth community, as well as, of course, the Norcom community, dating back with alumni and everything, because it really does take a community to pull these types of things off. We try to, our goal is to give every student a book that participates, and obviously books cost money, and so we do what we can to to get prizes for the students and just to reward them with a book, but also, give little incentives, just to, thank them for participating. And because, like you said, quite a few of them, staff and students, were coming in 2 to 3 times a week for about 3 weeks to compete. And they were forfeiting their, like you said, their lunch block to come in. And of course, the kids may eat first and then come in, but that's still a commitment, to come in consistently, and compete. And so the students had no idea that they were going to even receive gift cards or receive food or anything. And that's what made it even more joyous, because they competed, because they just, competed as a class, not knowing what the final, celebration was going to entail. And so that made it even more special when we were able to really celebrate them for their participation, and know that they participated because they wanted to, and not because they knew what the ultimate prize, was going to be. And so it was really fun. I know, Miss Stith, you were there for the escape room. That was so much fun. We set up escape rooms, and the classes that had the highest points got to compete. And we set up the escape room almost like the elevator, like they were on the elevator with the main character. And so they had to travel through the 7 floors, and they met all of the ghosts. And then there's some ghosts were tricking them, and they had to find things around the room. We turned the lights out, and all the students had flashlights. And I honestly, we had 4 classes go through, and I saw not one student that just sat and didn't participate. When I tell you, if I could show you guys the video from that day, I mean, the kids were moving all around the room with flashlights. They were working together. They were lifting chairs. They were looking under the tables. And I mean, these are high school kids. You would have thought that they were 8 or 9 years old. They were so engaged, and it definitely was a lot of work. And like you said, thankfully we had so many community partners and donors to help, make it happen. But every second of the work was worth it when I saw our kids just so, enthused and so engaged in the book and in that closing activity. And to see Miss Carey's class, actually, Miss Tate and Miss Carey's class both broke out. But once we timed it and everything, Miss Carey's class won. And so just to see the excitement in her class when they broke out of the room and, when they found out that they won, it was amazing. It was a very special moment. So
And
we just have to realize.
Thinking, let me change just one thing. When critical thinking not taking place in a lot of the classes anymore, a lot of critical thinking was taking place that day because they had to think about the clue. They had to think about what is it that I'm looking for. And I mean, they were working diligently to find those answers.
They were.
Sorry,
yeah. I mean, we have to realize that our high school students are still just kids. And some of them may think they're grown, but they're still kids, and they need those challenges.
Absolutely.
And that thing about being cool, I can't do this because that's not cool. You need those challenges because it's going to be plenty of challenges out there in life that you can prepare for now in some way, in a small way. So, that lets those kids those students be kids, because that's what they are.
Right.
And sometimes we try to treat them like they are grown.
Real life situations going on.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm still a kid at heart, but
yes.
But Nicole, you failed to mention about the elevator that the kids constructed out of that cardboard box.
Yes. So we have, last year when we did the crossover, we had brackets because we kind of pinned it around March Madness since it was basketball. And so we had basketball brackets on the wall, and that's kind of how we updated the points. Every time a student submitted the Google form, they got a point for their class. And so we had brackets. And so when we started Long Way Down, we were just racking our brains. Like, it takes place in an elevator. How are we going to display the points each week? Like, it doesn't go with basketball. We can't put brackets on the wall. What are we going to do? And so in discussing with a few of the students, it was kind of their idea. And they were like, well, maybe we can make an elevator. And I'm like, oh, cool. So I actually reached out to a few teachers in our science department, specifically one, Miss Overcamp. She does our environmental design class. She teaches some other courses as well. And so she recommended some wonderful students who are interested in engineering. And so they came down and they kind of, we talked about what our vision was for the elevator. They wanted the doors to slide open and close, and they had this whole, plan. And so we ended up reaching out to a few appliance stores in Portsmouth, and we got all of the cardboard donated. And then with Miss Overcamp's recyclable materials, they constructed a life-size elevator within a few days. Actually, they did an amazing job. We had three students that started it, and then we had 5 students total that finished. I mean, they spray painted it. And so we put the elevator in the hallway right outside the library, and then that's what we used every week to update the points so that the teachers knew. And boy, teachers were hot. If we didn't update those points, they were calling the library. They were like, the points aren't updated yet. What are you doing? I'm like, we're working on it. So it's like you said, just one of the other great things I can say about Norcom is the support of our staff. I think as a librarian, it's hard to do what we do without our staff because, students can free flow into the library during lunch, but unless staff members are willing to collaborate with us and allow us in their rooms, it's a little bit harder to access kids because some will come into the library, but there's quite a few that, that just won't. And so if I can get into the classroom, or if the teachers can bring their classrooms down, that allows us access to our students. And I've been well received with our staff. Anytime I put out, an idea, a competition, a collaboration, they've been so supportive. And I tell them all the time that makes all the difference. At the end of the day, we are, a school community. And so we couldn't do what we do without them. And so, to see them get involved in the excitement, the competition, you could see the the classes kind of running against each other. And, each week when we would update the points, the teachers would kind of talk smack with each other. We're going to take you down next week. Don't worry. We don't have any points now, but by the end of the competition, we got it, And so it's always fun. And so teachers have already asked us, what book are we doing next year? So I'm already trying to think what's coming for next school year. I don't know yet, but it's great.
And there's plenty of local authors around to be a part of the program and expose their books. I want to tell this short story about back in the day, and all people that went to Norcom in the 70s, 60s, and remember Mr. McGriff. Now, Mr. McGriff was the assistant principal who didn't play, but had a heart of gold. So when you had detention, you had to sit in a room with Mr. McGriff. I got detention one time for chewing gum in class. So that helped me with my street cred, to chewing gum in class. I was, but anyway, so that particular time I had that detention, Mr. McGriff took us all, the detention was held in the library. So we were all sitting in there and said, well, while you're sitting in here, you might as well pick up a book and read it. And I thought I don't know if he continued to do that, but because I never went to detention again. But I thought that was a very creative way, because normally you'd be sitting in there just looking at the clock, waiting for that detention period to end. But he took that particular class I was in to the library, and that's where we had to sit and spend our detention time. But we had to read a book. So
that's awesome.
I thought that was a great story. And that's the way Mr. McGriff was. And I know everybody that remember him knew him, as a person with a heart of gold, but you didn't want to mess with him. Didn't want to cross him.
We're very, very strict back then. And that's one thing that we're getting.
Yeah, chewing gum in class.
Right.
Detention.
We're getting that again at Norcom now with Miss Sanders and with Mr. McCollum and the other APs. They're really bringing discipline in order at that school. And anytime a student tells you that the principal is holding people accountable, that tells you a lot. And she was in a safe place. She was in a store. She was working, and she stopped to tell me about how the discipline in the school has truly changed, and how grateful she is, because now she feels truly safe going to school. And it's important that the young people feel safe in their environment.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're getting. And that's what the library provided. That's what the leadership is providing. And that's what we need to work towards.
Yeah, you have to be creative even when you're disciplined.
Yes.
There's a way to learn from any situation that you're in. So I believe that. All right, Leah, any last comments? We'll give our librarian and like you said last week, librarian. This week, a librarian.
This week we have a librarian. Okay.
Librarian. Thanks.
Well, Miss Miller, you're getting some nice responses on Facebook Live. We love positive. Roger Cawthorn says we love positive change makers. Amazing job. John Gantz, amazing work that you're doing for our young people. And others have made, Vivian and Francis Chavis and Cheryl Lundy and a few others are on here. They're watching. But I just like what you're doing, and I pray that you continue doing what you're doing. I don't want people to see that, first of all, Wavy TV 10 came to interview you for the fine job that you're doing at ICN Norcom High School. And that was the series was teacher what?
It was an Excellent Educator Award. So someone nominated me for an Excellent Educator. Yes, ma'am.
That's the kind of news that should get out there.
Yes,
absolutely.
And I told Brett Hall then, I'm just so happy to see you here doing positive news, because so often we don't see the media unless there's something negative going on in the school or in the community. So it was great to see him there to interview you, to salute you for the fine work that you're doing at IC Norcom. So you and your fellow librarians, you all have done an amazing job. I tell you, I hope nobody sees you and think that they can steal you, because the Alumni Association is not letting you go anywhere. You are grafted into the Norcom family, and that's where you will be. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
so
ma'am.
Thank you for the great things that you all are doing in the library. And I can't wait to see when it's renovated what it's going to be, because
Yes.
right now you've made it into a great place to be. And so
Thank
it's going to be
you.
even greater place to be. And I
Yes.
can't wait to see the book that you're going to bring to us next year, which
I
means
know.
alumni has to do some fundraising so that we can start, so we can be able to purchase those books when it's time to purchase those books. But
Yes, ma'am.
we are so thankful that we were able to help you, to assist you, not only with purchasing the books, but to come out to assist you
Mhm.
with the final day, having people out there to work to assist as volunteers. So I just want to thank you so very much for all that you do. You, Miss Bushy and Miss Boone, you all are an amazing team,
Thank
and you work
you.
well together, and that's what it's all about. So I want to
Yes,
say
ma'am.
thank you for coming on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And it wasn't like going to the dentist, honey. It was like a family
No,
conversation, was it not?
it was wonderful.
And
Yeah,
you
it
did an
just
amazing
flowed right
job.
out.
Yes, it did. It flowed right out.
Yes,
Yes, indeed. But you did
indeed.
an amazing job, and I appreciate you. I appreciate Miss Bushy. I appreciate Miss Boone, and I appreciate all that you're doing for IC Norcom, and I appreciate the fact that you are helping to keep that legacy alive. Thank you so very
Yes,
much.
ma'am. You're welcome. It's such a pleasure.
Yes, and I thank you. And I mentioned about I worked in the library my senior year. Do you have students that work with you in the library or at any time?
Yes, sir, we do. We have library interns, and so they apply to work in the library. Typically, their senior year. Once in a while, we'll get a junior if they, have advanced credits and things like that. But yes, we have two amazing library interns right now, and honestly, like they could run the library. They're that great. So it's really neat to have them in there and just to kind of help them grow and kind of come out of their shell a little bit and be a little bit more assertive and answer the phones and things like that. So that's been a joy. I really enjoy working with
Yeah.
the students.
Just don't work them as hard as Miss Bonds worked me. I don't know if she had a thing against athletes or what it was, but she did know my parents. I think that
And,
helped too.
James, we're glad to have Cletus on board tonight.
Yes. Hey,
Welcome,
Cletus,
Cletus
how you doing?
Cassidy.
Thanks for joining. Cletus is very involved in the school system as well. His son's school, so he's very familiar with this and how important it is for the librarian. And I'm glad we got a chance to feature you, Nicole, the librarian. We talk about our teachers, and you are a part of that education system, a very integral part of that. So thank you for showing up. And if you have any last words right now, please do.
Oh,
Anything you might want to say to the students, or just anything in general. You could talk about sports if you want.
well, I just, of course, want to thank you all for even, inviting me and just giving this platform to be able to share about librarians, and how important, library work is. So thank you both. And of course, to any students out there, Miss Miller loves you. I love our kids. And so I hope that, you guys visit whatever library, whether you're at Norcom or even if you're a Portsmouth student and you go to another school, I hope that you take time to go into the library, because libraries and librarians have so much to offer. Books are great, but libraries provide so much more than just books. So take advantage of your libraries. And of course, if you're a Greyhound, we love you.
We
Indeed.
love you.
Yes.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching watching Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition show. And remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share this with anybody that you know. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Nicole.